Latif, what's up, man? How are you? How's it going?
Hey, good man. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. Yeah, I'm really excited to connect with you today. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, likewise. Likewise. Let's dive in. Let's get to it.
Awesome. So to get started, I know you've accomplished a lot throughout your career in entrepreneurship, starting brands, your consultancy, everything you're doing, but I'd love to just start off to learn a little bit more about how did you get started in entrepreneurship and what's your origin story look like?
Origin story. Actually, I was really into entrepreneurship in college. I took some, like back in the day, there was no real education for entrepreneurship, but they had a few courses, and I took everything I could get my hands on, and I was like, oh, I really love this. And then after that, I launched a residential and commercial remodeling company with a friend of mine who had been in the business for like 10 years. He was about 10 years older than me. And I learned a lot about 10-man sales, the door-to-door
Yep.
sales. It was, we were doing the envelope of the home, so the siding, the roofing,
All
all
the
these
old
things.
school direct mail, door to door
Yeah,
sales.
yep.
Yeah. All the local
100%.
business
Yeah.
stuff.
I
Yeah.
feel like I'm dating myself. Maybe
Hey,
my beard is
that
also,
stuff still works. That's the crazy thing. That stuff still works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does. It does. And actually, I learned a lot. It wasn't my style,
Yeah.
that sort of hard sales tactic. I noticed a lot of agencies and a lot of different marketing strategies do center around that. And it's a much more hard, I would consider that a hard style. My style's always been more on the softer side in terms of how to convert and how to connect with your audience or connect with people just in general. But I took a lot of those lessons and then the I sold that to my partner at the time. I was ready to move on to something that was not construction. I wanted to do something fun. And a friend of mine, so my brother and I had been at this time. I was like, man, I want to get into another company. We started thinking about what we could do, ranging from like water bottles to anything. We were just kind of running the gamut. I didn't choose fashion it wasn't like I that was even on the
Yeah.
table actually. And what happened was my brother and a friend of his used to make these garments, these hats that are, for those of you who don't know, SpiritHoods is an all animal inspired faux fur, mostly faux fur apparel company, but we've expanded into a whole range of products that are animal inspired. So the brand is really about that. And we give 10% back to endangered animals. And that brand was launched a decade and a half ago, and it came about because my brother and I was looking for another company. My brother wanted to join in on that, and a friend of his had can't come over came over to the house once, and when we were doing these brainstorming sessions, and he just threw this hood on the table, and he had worn this garment out that they were making for Burning Man back in the day. They would just make these funky animal headwears with these wonky ears and all this just funny stuff. And he had told us that basically what he was saying was the stopping power was so crazy at the time. I mean, there wasn't faux fur garments like that 15 years ago, and the stopping power was so crazy that people on the streets were stopping to ask him about his hat. And I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting, from a business perspective. Stopping power is important. And we ended up launching a brand centered around animals and around this headwear that they would make for Burning Man. So kind of Burning Man with the impetus for that. But yeah, that's how I got into
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
So it was literally one of your a friend had this idea, brought it to the table, and you guys kind of partnered on it.
Yeah, essentially, we all three decided to join in and build a company. I had the company at the time still. I was working, I was exiting, and I went on vacation. And while I was on vacation, things that my team members, basically my partners, were um, starting to work on things and like, hey, you got to get back. There's a trade show in a few months, and we had to get our production sorted, and we launched this trade show, and it was actually a really quick turnaround. Fashion, you can get things done, and you can do some wild things. And it's again, we didn't even have our production ready or lined up when we went and launched at a trade show, and we did a phenomenal job of getting clients and customers, but we didn't even have our production backbone at that time. So there,
That's
even
awesome.
back then, how we will kind of test marketing tactics without even
Yep.
having a product. I was doing the same thing but in person. Now we do it digitally, but yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
great thing about fashion too, especially when you're launching, is instead of like, let's say if you're making a hard good or something that you need multiple molds on, and then you need to go to market and you're looking at 30 to 50 grand to go to market,
Yeah.
fashion, you find a local supplier or, you get find, even if it's outsourced, you find someone where you can, hey, do a run for 4 or 5 grand. I feel like it's the same story we have. We work with quite a few fashion brands fashion apparel footwear brands at Breadloaf, and the same
Nice.
origin story. It's like our one of our longtime clients, Kenny Flowers, Kenny Hasfield. He was a consultant for one of the big tech companies, and he
Hmm.
was like, I just want to make fun Hawaiian shirts, and went to Bali, found a dude in Bali that could make the shirts for him, and
Right.
made a run, and then did the same. And I was just, there's another brand based out of Arizona. They actually started in LA, golf brand called called Bad Birdie Golf. Same story.
Mm.
Founder Jason Richardson, and I remember meeting him like 2018. He was like, "Yeah, I was a producer working in entertainment, and like a DP." And he's like, "I had
Hmm.
this idea for fun golf shirts. I did a run of it, and it worked." So
Wow.
it's cool how you can
Yeah.
test and rapid prototype, bring something to market, and see if it works versus dropping 50, 100, 250 grand into the new venture.
Yeah, I mean now even with AI, I think you can get away with some crazy like complete digital, not even a first round production run. You know what I mean? And do ads and test markets. I'm sure you've done stuff like that. So it's definitely it's interesting how we are having to adapt and change, but still use these conceptually. We're using the same sort of fundamentals of testing before you invest entirely. You know what I mean? So. But yeah, it was a wild time. I mean, that sounds like, they're these guys and those companies have been doing well since
Yeah,
then. Yeah,
still
that's
doing
yeah,
well. Yeah, yeah. It's actually
yeah.
I was reading an article about Bad Birdie Golf, and they have brick and mortar locations all over the US now,
Wow,
and they're like 7 years old and completely 100% still owned by the founder and his wife. It's
it's great.
incredible. I mean, who signs like brick and mortar deals without venture funding these days?
Yeah, yeah,
Action,
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's
yeah,
that's that's bold. That's amazing. Good
yeah.
for them. That's
So when did
fantastic.
you guys launch Spirit Hoods?
2009,
Okay, cool.
we formulated the company by 2000 by February of 2010. We were at the trade show I was talking about. We didn't have a website at that time either, but we started shipping production by like May. And I remember when we sold maybe 30, $40,000 worth of merchandise at our first trade show. That was the best trade show we ever did, actually.
Was it Magic or was it a
Was
different deal?
it was at Magic, and
Okay.
it was a smaller section called Pool.
Okay, cool.
It's called Pool
Awesome.
Trade Show. Yeah, it's a project in Magic. Um, and ironically, in one sitting, like in one show, that was still, we'd come close to almost beating our first show ever, but we never actually beat in a show. Of course, we would do millions of dollars in
Yeah.
business later on, but in a single 2 days, of acquiring orders that were purchased right then and there. So it was, yeah, from there we went and we launched our online business, towards, summer of that year of 2010. And things just kind of just we got sucked up into pop culture a bit, and we just kept growing from there for a couple of years, and then we ran into some obstacles, which is usually what happens. You get
Yeah,
sucked up into the trend, or you get
absolutely.
some great runway going on, and then something happens, and you gotta sink or swim. You gotta learn how to navigate those waters.
What were some of those challenges that you guys went through?
Knockoffs were the
Yeah.
biggest thing. It's like, I actually just was working on we do these throwback emails just to our audience, people who know us in our community. And I was talking about the history, and we had launched kids. And again, that had just gotten knockoffs came on board. We had Pottery Barn, Target. We got into some lawsuits with some of these companies because they used our trademark name, and you got to
Yeah.
think like, well, these are big corporations. Their legal budgets are astronomical. So in order to survive an experience, I mean, entrepreneurship is no joke. I mean, to me, it is a full tilt, hardcore choice to make in your life. Now, some people make it either they've got historical money that allows them to operate their company more easily, or they've got great, experience and wisdom from corporate world or whatever. But anytime you go into engage in as an entrepreneur, you're going to face a lot of obstacles, and you're facing them on like a small boat, and the people around you oftentimes have huge boats. You know what I mean? So there's advantages to that, and there's disadvantages. And for us, the legal element and the knockoffs, the trademark infringements, the copyrights, these things still go on to this day. And I only have so much budget dedicated to fighting all of the knockoffs, all of the global trademarks we have. And we're just a small company. And the reason we need global trademarks is to prevent people from entering territories that we want to enter
Absolutely.
in the future, or knocking us off there and pretending to be us and us not having any visibility or any legal protection, right? Especially in China. So yeah, I mean, we ran into that was a major obstacle. I think that's one of the biggest. And then, of course, we have to expand our product line because we had headwear and in all honesty, we didn't know that what I know now is very different than what I knew back then. If I'm advising somebody or I'm talking about how we would launch another product category, I'm not going to launch one unless I can own that product category in Google search and SEO
Yeah.
terms, right? Because what like running on ads alone is going to deplete you. You have to have foundational principles for conceptually thinking, about how you're going to own or have a slice of a market share, right? So it's this product market fit. So if you're talking about Hawaiian shirts, right? Like that's great. The reason that was successful is because there's only so many people actually doing Hawaiian shirts. Like all he did was Hawaiian shirts, right? If somebody comes to me and say, "Oh, I want to do dresses," I'm going to go, "No, you don't." Because everyone and their mom is competing for dresses. There's a lot of search volume for it. You'll never rank for it. If you do something like get back to that point, Hawaiian print or, animal butterfly print dresses or animal print dresses. Now you've got a slice of the pie that you can own. And from there, you can expand your market share bit by bit. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. That's
I'm not
funny. That's
talking tech
exactly.
world, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're
That's
talking like
exactly what
product
Jimmy Stars
based.
did. Yeah. They
Yeah.
they started with core men's like Hawaiian shirts, like reinvented the fit on it. And then they launched women's, then they launched like a whole resort collection, then they launched swimwear, and then they launched kids. So they literally went from
Yeah.
like this core like bro kind of Hawaiian shirt
Yep.
brand to now a family brand where you can be going to Cabo with your family and you can dress everyone up in the same print, and take the
Yeah.
fun family
Yeah.
photos. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's smart. That's smart. And how many Hawaiian print bikini companies are there? How many, so like when you're
Totally.
looking at how you're going to run your model, you might be like, especially as a creative. I mean, my work is really on creative entrepreneurs, right? That's what I am. That's what we do at SpiritHoods. That's what our consultancy for, services and clients and stuff. So it's like, how do if you've got to think both in a creative mindset and an operational mindset at all times, kind of, like, if it'd be different if we were just true artists and we could create art for the sake of art, but we're creating products or marketing for the sake of selling. And so that in and of itself is not entirely true to the art, true to just art. It's actually creativity for the sake of something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Which makes it, well, to me, that's my art. That's what I love. It's like,
yeah,
how do I create things that are actually going to have an impact and value? And especially working with,
yeah,
you work with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, and I've worked. One of my oldest clients started working with them in 2016. They were doing 3 to 5,000 a month. It was a little side project, and now they're doing 15 mil a year, very, very profitable. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So it's
fantastic.
it's yeah, it's cool to see, the evolution of how art and like marketing and advertising and this digital space, like a mix of math, art, and science. It's all
100%.
comes
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. 100%. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So tell me about your consultancy. Like besides Spirit Hoods, like what are you doing with that, and who do you guys work with?
Yeah, we work with specifically people in the wearables space. I mean, for example, we have garment on hanger solutions because our facility here, we had to build an in-house infrastructure to support Spirit Hoods. And so basically, I've taken the infrastructure we have and expanded upon it, uh, in order to allow us to help other people and incorporate other businesses into what we do. And so, it's a range from production management because we have so tapped in on production internationally and globally. We have a team dedicated to that. We have our own social media marketing strategies that are centered around creative content creation. How to make an impact. That's a lot of our marketing is a bit wild, right? Like it's a bit. it's interesting. We use interesting tactics. And in our world, it's about, I think successful brands are doing one of two things in their content game. They're either being entertaining, and funny is really powerful as an example, but entertaining, or their content is about education, or a blend of the two, right? But
Yeah.
this is generally what I see. And I think if you nail that right in combination with your sales tactics and your marketing strategies to sell, right, you need to be providing a service to the world out there. So we sort of specialize in branding and marketing that is authentic to the voice, and also, is impact marketing in the sense that it's going to elicit an emotional response, just the visuals, right? Like if you go to our website and you look at some of the content we've created, or you're following some of our stuff, you'll see some of these tactics that we use that are genuine to our brand, right? There'll be, an animal in the shot that is like, we've cropped into into the shot, and it's a pigeon, dropping a deuce on like one of our letters that says shop now, like we just do things that are, unique and creative. And I'm not suggesting everyone do that,
Yeah.
but what I am saying is that using tactics and strategies to garner attention in space and be entertaining and creative. This is marketing that when we talk retention, we were talking about that earlier, maybe offline, I think we were talking about, but just retention marketing, how to get people to be loyal followers of the brand, how to get them, people don't just want to be sold every day. I mean, every day you're getting text messages and email marketing. That's just not going to cut it anymore, in terms of longevity and customer retention. They'll sign up for the text message, get what they want, and check
Right.
out, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be on this text message thread anymore, and they'll just opt out, right? How do you get them to stay? You get them to stay by using tactics and strategies that are genuinely offering a service or a value to these people consistently, both in discounts or new product releases, and interesting content, educational content, something that is like, oh, I love these guys. We're cracking jokes on our SMSs. We're like, just all sorts of stuff. And we use ours, since we're an animal inspired brand, we use that as, our lead through. But, we do things like that. Garment on hanger systems, right? Where we can hang products from people that are specifically needing that kind of storage or warehousing solution, or even logistics shipping solution. So we do kind of a range of things, but we're centered on wearables, jewelry, fashion, home
Awesome.
goods, even, and but everything you'd adorn on your body, we're really centered around that type of consulting.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
you brought up a really valid point. Is something that we push with all the brands we work with, is like the moment you think that you can just say buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff all the time, there's no brand in there. You're just being a
No.
merchant, and people get tired of that. But
Oh
if you
yeah.
treat your customers and your email list, SMS list, your social followers, you treat them like, now I'm going to be a media company and I'm going to entertain, I'm going to
Yes.
educate, and I'm going to do
Yes.
things like we have a spearfishing client we've worked with for
Hmm.
years called Neptonic. Spearfishing Marketplace makes their own gear. If you're into spearfishing, you're obsessed with it, right? It's like a very
Right.
niche sport, and you want to learn everything you can. So a lot of what we do is education. And we've got a gun building course that we're working on right now. It actually teaches
Wow,
them to
that's
make their own
cool.
guns and sell them the parts. And then
That's
obviously
cool.
everything from, destinations to go on trips. We're like making guides, spearfishing guides for all these different destinations around the world. So it's like the Lonely Planet for spearfishing. So it's like,
Wow.
you have fun with that stuff, and now people get
Yeah.
excited, now
Yeah.
you're building that. And depending on you nailed it, depending on what type of brand you have will dictate what type of content you deliver and what your audience
100%.
is interested in. Yeah.
100%. Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we use SpiritHoods as sort of the staging ground for everything, and now it's just my test facility. I love it's my brand also, and I love my brand,
Yeah.
But now I run two companies, a consultancy and an apparel brand. And in this market for fashion, it was wise for me to have built out two components to how we drive revenue and how we interact with the world from a business standpoint, right? Because
Totally.
fashion's just like been hit hard,
Oh yeah.
so
Let's talk about that. Like I'm sure, being an LA based brand and being in
yeah.
fashion, like what is some of the challenges that you guys have been facing with all the tariffs lately?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's before tariffs actually.
Yeah.
Fashion was hit hard. You had Roxy and Quicksilver going under before Trump administration was here.
Yeah.
You had
Mm,
Forever 21 basically filing for bankruptcy, and then of course, I don't think anyone bought them, so they filed. I think they filed full bankruptcy. So I mean, it's been going on for a while. I was in Asia for production, I mean, I go a couple times a year, and every time I've been, we go to some of these places like Guangzhou or some of these locations where I need to hunt down, fabrics and vendors and suppliers, and we're losing our vendors and suppliers. And these are people that took me years to find. Like it takes a long time to find a vendor that's quality, that, because not just China, but any country that you're manufacturing in, there is, experiential wisdom in dealing with these people and learning how to find the right partners and identifying people that are going to be able to support your production pipeline, right? Your supply chain. So, and I've just watched these huge, they're like malls of vendors, right? You go to a mall, you think of a mall, a strip mall or what, but these are just
yeah.
tons of vendors. They're just empty. There's just no one's there.
Unreal.
And it's such a bizarre thing to experience being there. And then 6 months later, half the stores are gone. 6 months later after that, even more are gone. You're like, whoa. We can't, a lot of the designs and production take us 6 months to a year. Sometimes they're farther out before we will launch something, right? 6 months is early. Most companies are a year developing a year out, right? And there goes my designs, right? Because I can't get the same fabrics. They don't produce them anymore. That supplier's gone. They don't exist anymore. So seeing this globally has been really challenging and costly from a design standpoint. There's just there's a lot of changes in consumer behaviors around fashion, which I think is great. I think on one hand, there's a lot of great things going on where people are going to vintage, they're upcycling, they're going, but a lot of people are just no longer wanting to pay full price or purchase. So either they're going and buying used clothing, which I'm a fan of, um, or they're really only wanting discounted products because post COVID, a lot of brands had a bunch of inventory and things were going relatively well. And then things changed. And I don't know, I haven't heard, I'm in the fashion bubble, so I don't know what it's like necessarily in the outside in other industries, but in the fashion world, that is a commodity that you're going to spend money on when you have extra capital. And it's not the same world. I think people don't choose Instagram like they don't think about Instagram and social media the same way where it was like, I need to have a new outfit and I need to look different every time. I think people are just changing in their behavioral patterns. And so shopping is changing. And so, when you have going through this phase where people had a ton of inventory and then there was too much inventory and we had consumer behavior starting to downshift post COVID in purchasing. And then you've got that situation where people need to get rid of inventory. If you have too much inventory, your company's going to go out. So we saw a lot of
You
companies
got to turn
going
it.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You
you
got to
also
turn
saw,
inventory. It's like we say all the time. It's like those are just that inventory sitting on a warehouse somewhere, those are dollars on the shelf. And when you got a
yes,
cash conversion issue, the best thing you can do is convert that inventory back into cash as soon as
yeah,
possible.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you're also borrowing money likely
To
to
fund it.
have that inventory,
Absolutely. And
and
you're
you're
paying interest on it. And that
paying
interest ain't cheap
interest.
right now. Yeah.
Yep. No, it's
Yeah.
very expensive, right? It's the most expensive it's ever been. So you've got credit card debt at an all-time high. You've got these things where people are starting to pull back, and yet you have all this inventory because the market wasn't showing that many signs of a pullback. And so then everyone discounts their products. And so for a year straight, even through into this year, 2025, but through 2024, everybody was heavily discounting. I mean, I don't know if you paid attention, but fashion brands were 70% off, 60% off, 80% off. I mean, top quality brands. And then on top of it, a lot of these, because people are shopping differently, a lot of these big department stores, they also ran into trouble. And so now they owe, even still, I'm pretty sure. I mean, this article came out a few months ago, and they owed hundreds of millions of dollars to small businesses like us who
I heard.
sell to big
Yeah,
department stores.
Bloomingdale's and some of these big
Bloomingdale's.
department stores hadn't have
Yep.
paid these small brands millions
Yeah.
of dollars. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're
Yeah.
selling it. It's not even like they have it in inventory. They're like doing the sellback reports and it's sold and they're just not getting paid. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you can't, like, small brands can't, and this is the things that put brands out all the time is you get a department store order and you're shipping out a $60,000 worth of goods or $100,000 worth of goods and they have a net 60 and then something like this happens and you don't get paid. You're not going to survive that.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of small brands that have no ability to produce anything. They're struggling, right? And you just have it rampant in the industry. I mean, even in the LA fashion district, this 125% tariff, whatever, 145% tariff, it's not plausible. There are some good things that have happened. Do you know about the de minimis, the 321 redirect or the de
No,
minimis
no,
loophole?
no.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of brands like Temu, Shein, all of them. They have been undercutting companies like us, where we do have to
Yeah.
import containers and we
Yeah, but
pay tariffs.
if it's under $900, right, in order, then it doesn't
Yeah,
you
it's under $800. Yeah, $800. There's no tariffs. They're just sliding under the
which is
radar.
great because now Temu just turned off all their ads and they're spending more money on paid than anyone on Meta over the
Oh,
last like
really?
18 months. They just turned their ads off. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the thinking behind that? Because they're just
Well,
not able
because
to
they
compete in
can't,
this.
they're out of the US market. They can't, they got rid of that.
Wow.
They're getting rid, so it's like they can't ship like they used to. I mean, they were literally leveraging, the US, postal service and our network to,
Yep.
to get around these rules and just undercutting
Yeah.
all American brands on our American out networks, so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
It's
think,
it's bringing back like I have several clients that have shifted their supply chain and now manufacturing in downtown LA again, which
yeah, yeah.
great. Yeah.
Which I mean, yeah, it's cool. On one hand, I will say it's not feasible.
Yeah, you won't be
There's
able to
like,
do a big,
no,
full wide scale. Yeah.
you can't. You can do high-end goods made in America, some, but I think the idea that you're blanket tariffing something is kind of a terrible strategy because
Totally.
something like a faux fur industry, which is a big industry, there's none of that machinery exists here. None of the fur is produced here. None of the technical know-how to manufacture those types of garments exists here. So there's no way it's going to be brought back, right? So
Yeah.
but t-shirts, you can manufacture t-shirts in the US right now, no problem, right? There's supply chains and production pipelines that do exist here, or in Mexico or in this region, but different regions specialize in different manufacturing
And
skill sets.
you can't just bring that here. And you made a valued point. One of our clients that manufactures wetsuits, specifically free diving wetsuits.
Right.
Same thing. There's 4 factories in the world that make Yamamoto foam freediving wetsuits. They're all located in China. There's one
Yeah.
other supplier in Turkey, but they still need to import the Yamamoto foam, right? That's made in
Right,
China.
right,
So
right.
you're not going to be able capabilities, supply chain, raw materials. You can't build that overnight. That's going to take 18 to
No.
24, 36 months, and no one's going to invest tens of millions of dollars without financing, and no one's going to get financing unless they guarantee that this was for good, right?
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah.
it's like everyone's in limbo right now where it's like, well, we don't know if Trump's going to change something tomorrow. The
Yep,
wind's going to blow a
yep.
different direction, and now you just
Yeah.
spend, and it also is not a good look if all these brands are importing goods, right? And now the ports are flooding with goods that you don't have the money to pay for the tariffs, right? Those
Right.
goods are now going to go to auction. It's not a good look when American brands have tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars in product that's sitting at the port that they can't pay for taxes on, and now that product's
Yeah.
going to auction.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in LA. I've thought
Yeah.
about going down there and auction. Like, you can buy these auctions.
You can buy it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you can buy, you don't get to really know what you're going to get out of a container, but you can see a little bit and you can make a bid on an auction for a few $1,000s. You could luck out with,
Yeah.
100 computers, I don't know,
True.
but like, but you also could luck out with like, diapers or something, something you're not going to have a
Yeah.
good time selling. But yeah, it's an interesting time. I think consumer behaviors are changing no matter what. I think that AI is also impacting. I don't think people really understand the capacity sometimes of AI and what it is going to do. It is already making businesses more efficient, which we do like, but the byproduct of efficiency is that humans are not tending to be the most efficient purveyors of information or producing something, right? Information, so there's a lot of jobs that are going to go to the wayside, and that I think that's going to create even more challenges, because if you just look at over the next decade, I would anticipate 30% of jobs that are being done by humans uh, to be alleviated by AI. That's a lot of our
Totally.
population. You know what I
And not
mean?
only AI, but robots too.
Robots. Yeah,
That
yeah,
are
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
be, you're gonna have AI
yeah,
driven factories that, humanoids running around, doing those things that, just
yeah,
automate systems. Yeah. Yeah. You
yeah.
made a very valid point. Yeah. It'd be interesting
Yep.
just to see the jump and the leap and the transition that we have over the next, 5 to 10 years.
100%. And as
Yeah.
an entrepreneur, you need to be thinking about what the likelihood of whatever industry you're in is going to be in terms of survivability, whether or not there's enough creativity in that market, whether or not automation is going to dominate. And if automation is going to dominate, corporations are going to come in with big budgets and easy time of automating things, right? They're the ones who are going to crush. I mean, they also can get away with knocking things off. In our case, even when I went into these lawsuits with some of these big, giants, yeah, we settled, but I settled for like a very small fraction of the damage that was done, because I didn't have the funds to keep fighting. And the fighting in a lawsuits are just not worth your time. We don't sue people because I don't care
A
to
lot of pain
spend the
and
money.
suffering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't want to spend the money, even if somebody's doing something wrong. I'm just like, screw it. Let's just crush them in SEO. Let's crush them in every other category. We'll destroy them another way. But I'm not going to spend the time and energy on a legal team. It's draining. It's draining psychologically. So you're just kind of like, you try to leave legal stuff on the wayside and you try to focus on your core competency and evolving your brand. But thinking creatively about the future is going to be really important as people are setting up their businesses for success. And there's also something interesting is also just how many older people in entrepreneurship are exiting, and so there is a lot of opportunity also to in acquisition, that is taking place. And I notice a lot of people that do have the funds that are, there's also something to be said about the craftsman industry, because those things are hard to replace by AI or robotics,
Totally.
right? There's certain
Especially a lot of
industries that,
these small like engineering firms, like manufacturing engineering firms that make like specific bolts that
mm,
they've got certain like, they've got certain like certs just to their
right,
facility and they supply a
right.
specific bolt to Boeing or Lockheed, right? And there's only
Interesting.
so
Yeah.
many people that can actually supply those specific pieces. And they're tied
Right.
they're actually bonded to like a facility. So it's not like you can just
Right.
go out of state and move it and say this guy's 70, 75 years old. He's been running it for 35, 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're going to shut it down or find someone to take it over? Yeah.
100%. A lot of these people are just, they've got a business that isn't that sexy, but on paper they're doing pretty well, and you can take over some of these companies for a reasonable amount, you know what I mean? Because they're just trying to exit. So it's like, yeah, it's a really interesting time. There's a lot going on in the world of entrepreneurship, I'd say, and
Absolutely.
how we're thinking about the future and the present moment reality, how to weather this storm. Economically, I don't see how we're not. I don't know I don't watch the news, but to me, we're in a recession. Like I don't know if I don't hear
100%.
anyone talking about it, but like fashion world is destroyed right now. I mean, it's bad. You know what I mean? And at the same token, there's opportunity to acquire market share as companies go out, as you identify things that are spots that you can take over. So it's just,
Last man
it's
standing right now in fashion. That's it. It's like, how do you weather the storm and get through it?
yes.
I mean, it's wild to just see, like you brought up like a couple of the surf brands, like, I'm down here in Costa Mesa, Newport, and, the Holdco that had all those licenses, Quicksilver, Board
Yeah.
Riders, Billabong, is right down the street from me, and couldn't make it. And that was 2.5, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So they had a total of like 180, 200 brick and mortars throughout the
Wow.
whole world.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and now they're being sold in
Yeah.
bankruptcy. So, and it's
Yep.
interesting too, because a lot of those, like that was a private equity owned all the licenses and essentially licensed them to another holdco,
I
try to
see. Yeah.
maximize supply chain, because you think if you own all these brands, and all these brands are making, the shorts that Ruka makes versus the shorts that Volcom makes versus the shorts that Billabong makes are very similar shorts and t-shirts.
They might be
So
made at the same factory, actually, So
probably,
yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to see where things are going. And with that being said, what's your plan for the future? Like, what do you see yourself doing with your brand and the consultancy? You've been doing it obviously for a while, since 2009. Have you ever thought about
Yeah.
an exit, or is this something that you guys
I
enjoy
don't,
running and you want to continue?
yeah. I mean, there's a part of me just like I get to design clothes also for a living, and there have been years where I just design really heavily and I'm less in the operational mindset. The last couple of years have been very operationally minded, very marketing centered, really having to figure out how to deal with the ever present reality of costs going up and changing consumer behaviors, and marketing just not having the same power that it once did, dollar for dollar, right? Ads are just always increasing. So having to double down on SEO strategically and really be creative. And I think that's fun and exciting. So, I think for me, I just love having a creative company. And I think, on my consultancy side, we're centered around the way we think is because we're operators, we get to then be an operator within another company as opposed to being like an agency that can feel a little bit outside. We're a bit more inside of the company, and we are very transparent with our knowledge. Like for me, I'm an educator. So I think as life goes on, I notice that I really like to educate people, and I want people to be successful in entrepreneurship. I think the idea of competition is a little, I mean, there's not, if you think that way, then you're going to struggle. If you think about how to just evolve yourself and your own company or strategies, there's a lot of information that can be shared across, many different industries and even the same industry, right? So I think for us, we've downsized SpiritHoods, right? To talk to your point about the future, I've had to downsize because of the last couple of years, and now I'm stabilizing in only product categories that I know I can own, top 5 positioning for on Google search. And some of these are big terms like women's faux fur coat, men's faux fur coat, full body suits, and these different, product categories that we crush pretty well already. So I've been amplifying those, and there's a range of tactics and strategies to do that. And once I feel satisfied with our strategic, foundation within each product category that we serve in the community, then I'll move on and expand into the next one that I feel is the most appropriate, has the greatest opportunity on the SEO side, and also fits with our consumer base, et cetera. And so it's been this like downsizing, a bit of a restructuring, a bit of a rethinking, on the SpiritHood side. And at the same time, the growth operative, my consultancy, gives me the opportunity to, educate other entrepreneurs, to work with other entrepreneurs, utilize my team, effectively at a time when fashion is not having the best time, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, we're also not heavy in spring, summer. We do have a pretty big festival following as well. People that are going to festivals and things, they ranging from Burning Man to, Coachella. We've
All
serviced
the
that community
shows.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do that during spring, summer. We do a lot of loud colors and bright stuff. And then in fall, winter, we're more toned down and more fashion forward. But spring, summer is just not an ideal time for faux fur anyways. So we've got a lot of opportunity during the spring, summer to acquire more clients, work through, build up infrastructure on the consultancy side. And then we go heavy into, our season as a faux fur brand. So I personally don't plan on exiting. I think fashion is one of the hardest industries to be in the world, apart from restaurant, industry. industry, and I like the challenge. I really like pushing the envelope, and I have been able to test so many things. So as the consultancy continues to grow, I still, for me, I get opportunities to potentially partner with companies if I feel, sometimes people want us to partner and come in, and really run more of their operations and their marketing or whatever. Maybe we do equity exchanges and things like that. It just depends. So I've got a lot of opportunities in the consultancy. I'm sure you have experienced that as well, where you get to engage with a variety of people, educate them in a variety of ways, and see if there is good fits between you. There's other opportunities that can be expanded. And just in that process, I get to discover areas in the market as an entrepreneur that maybe need products, or they need some other, there's a hole to be filled, right? So it's just an interesting place to be, and I kind of like where I'm at. So I don't foresee any exits in the near future.
That's awesome. If you love what you
Yeah,
do, you don't want to stop doing it. I'm the same
yeah,
exact way. When people, I get like 5 emails a week. Do you want to sell your company? And I'm like, absolutely not. We're growing to 100 mil
yeah,
over the next decade. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
also
It's
love
fun.
what you said too. And the thing that I love about fashion as well, fashion is never finished. You know,
Yeah,
it's always
yeah,
evolving. So it's like you could be selling other hard goods and it's like, or other things. And it's like, how many times can you reinvent it? But the thing
100%.
I love, especially for our retention clients in fashion, apparel, footwear, accessory, is there's always a new season. There's always a new trend and
Yep.
there's always a new reason to create something new. And that's how you can bring that art into the product and constantly reinvent it.
Yeah, and I have another friend of mine who she did the Thinks period underwear, and then she also did Hello Tushy, and she's launching another brand called Hero Technologies, and um, the that is centered around mycology and mushrooms that eat plastics.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I'm working with her. I just sent her a bunch of our stuff because our stuff is acrylic based. It's some of the most beautiful stuff that you can come across, but it is centered in acrylic, right? So how do we also make sure that we're evolving from a sustainable standpoint? We also have our manufacturing facility working on a rayon blend of faux fur, which is really hard to do, but we're
Wow.
talking about now sustainable fashion, which are the next levels of fashion. And we want a better planet. So it's like the better planet doesn't come from not being in industries that are polluting. It comes from being in those industries and
Make it
evolving them forward. Yeah,
better.
and telling the world that this is something they need to spend money on because you vote with your dollars, right? When you shop at Temu, you're shopping for garbage. You're shopping for slave labor of some kind, probably. You're shopping for you're voting for stuff,
You're
and some
voting
people
to
can't
undercut other
afford anything else.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
so it's a double-edged sword. Some people can't afford more, and I understand that place. And also at the same token, you're supporting an organization that does really crappy things for the planet. And so if you want a better planet, you've got to spend money on the things that are true and better for you. Do you know what I mean?
no,
So
totally.
um, you want to vote on solid brands, and you want to be able to as a brand, you want to educate people on the things they need to think about, and you hope that the consumers will also support you in that process. That they'll want to stick with your brand and watch your evolution. And if you're doing a good job of educating or entertaining around these things, people do tend to want to follow your story and what's going on. You
Totally.
know,
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. Well, Latif, I know we're running out of time, but wrapping up, this was awesome. It was a great interview. I
hey, I
know we
love
could
it.
talk for hours here.
I know, yeah, I think
For,
so. I think
for
so.
anyone that wants to get in touch with you, where can they reach you? If they're interested in
Yeah,
working with you at the consulting business or checking out the brand, where can they reach
yeah.
out?
So yeah, thegrowthoperative.com. You can find us there. You can sign up for a consultation. Like, we can get on a one-on-one if you've got something going on you want me to chat with you on. Or SpiritHoods.com. You can follow the brand there and see what we're doing, in the fashion world and how we sort of disrupt that industry and the things we do. You can sign up for our email and just, our social, follow us there. Go to the website, SpiritHoods.com. If you love what we're doing, you can, just follow us. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Yep.
This is great. Had a great
Yeah,
time
man. It
today.
was a pleasure to be
Yeah.
on. Yeah, thanks. I really had fun.
Awesome. Thanks,
All
Latif.
right, cool.
See ya.
Okay, yep. Take care of yourself. All right, bye.